Warning, this chapter contains adult content, so I have left that section out and will be reading it around it as best I can. If you would enjoy the entire chapter, please visit the link in the descriptions. Reverse by Black K. Cat. Chapter 79. Leaf. Kushina shows up halfway through lunch with no explanation beyond an Uzumaki's 6 cents for ramen, which Kurama supposes is explanation enough. She's wearing the topmost layer of the Hokage's robes without the hat, red hair pulled up in a high tail, and sword still over her back, scratched and bruised, but cheerful even so. With a friendly grin at Teiuchi, she slides into the seat on Kakashi's right, then promptly steals Kurama's ball. Hey! Kurama snaps, even though he's already waiting for Teiuchi to bring him another one. Too slow, little brother! Kushina taunts and promptly stuffs as many noodles in her mouth as will fit. It's a lot of noodles. Kurama sees many big mouth jokes in her future. I earned that! He protests, but Kushina just grins all teeth, and he has to roll his eyes, unwilling to be soothed by the stroke of Kakashi's thumb against his thigh. Fuck it, tomato. Mouth still full, Kushina flips him off, spends a few seconds struggling to swallow her bite, and retorts, I'm the Hokage! Show some respect! Officially, Yugito asks, raising her head from whatever destructive Plachi and Fu are giggling over. Are they going to have a ceremony? Probably not. Kakashi is the one who answers, and there's a faint wry slant to his smile, though his hand doesn't move from where it's curled over Kurama's leg. When the Hokage changes during a time of conflict, there isn't usually a celebration. Though since Sarutobi is still alive, they might change that. The stubborn old bastard will be fine, Kushina says firmly, then leans around Kakashi to wave at the street. Yagura! And... oh... The tone of that makes Kurama look up from his new bowl of ramen, and his eyes immediately narrow at the sight of who is approaching. Not just Yagura, who has stripped off his Mizukage robes and all signs of office, including his Hitayatai, but the Kazekage and... oh, indeed, Kurama thinks, eyeing the blonde girl clinging to Rasa's hand, the dark-haired boy half hidden behind it. Gaara, one chair down on Naruto's far side, makes a startled, almost scared sound and glances at Kurama like he's judging the best path over to his lap. Thankfully, Rasa stops at the very edge of their group, next to Kushina, and doesn't try to come any closer. Uzumaki, he says with a polite nod and gently extracts his fingers from Tamari's grasp. Why don't you two go say hello while I speak with Uzumaki? He tells his children, and Kurama feels his brows rise. That wasn't what he was expecting. All right, Tamari says, all fierce determination, and she grabs Gangaro by the sleeve, towing him over towards Gaara. Fu, on Gaara's other side, leans in to smile at them, and Naruto waves cheerfully. Gaara looks between his two fellow Jinchuriki, then at his siblings, and visibly steels himself before he offers a tentative smile. Tamari's steps falter just a little, and her eyes widen, but then she smiles back, bright and relieved. Deciding that they'll be fine, Kurama shifts his attention back to Rasa, turning around on his stool and leaning back against the counter to level the Kazekage with an entirely unimpressed look. If you think a few minutes of making nice with the siblings is going to be enough to get Gaara to go back to Suna with you, he starts, a clear warning in his tone. Rasa raises a hand, expression tired, and shakes his head. Believe me, Uzumaki, that's the last thing on my mind. He reaches into his robes and pulls out a sheaf of folded papers and a pen, offering both to Kurama. When Kurama hesitates warily, he snorts softly and says, Go ahead. They're adoption papers. I am formally waiving my rights as Gaara's father. Suna isn't the place for him, but it seems as if he's found a place of his own regardless. A little stunned, Kurama takes the papers, then opens them and checks them over. It's the truth. They really are adoption papers, already bearing Rasa's signature and stamp, just waiting for Kurama's own. When he glances up, faintly incredulous, Rasa just shakes his head again. I would have asked Gaara's opinion, but I believe he already made that clear, he says quietly. And despite the fact that I caused it, I didn't want to look into my son's face and watch him choose someone else. One more moment of cowardice, I'm afraid. There's a cutting answer on the tip of Kurama's tongue, but Well, this is a decent peace offering as long as Gaara never has to set foot in Suna until they realize he's more than the monster they made him into. Instead, he bites the words back, adds his own signature to the line, and hands one set of papers back to Rasa. Thanks, he says gruffly, because Rasa could easily have been far more of an asshole about this, but for the first time he put Gaara's welfare over his value as a Jinchuriki, and since he'll be out of their lives shortly, Kurama can take that as something of a bridge being mended. Rasa's expression is rueful beneath the shadow of his hat, but he inclines his head and steps away. Tamari, Kagero, be back at the inn before dinner time, he says sternly. Yes, father, Tamari agrees, then hesitates, looking from Rasa to Gaara. We can stay for a little while? If you'd like. Rasa agrees. He stares at Gaara for a long moment, regret and resignation foremost on his face, then turns away. Goodbye, Gaara, he says, and without waiting for a response, he pushes through the hangings and heads back the way he came, leaving Baki to linger a few stalls down, one eye on Kagero and Tamari. Gaara watches him go, eyes wide, but a moment later Naruto tugs on his sleeve and he turns back, a smile breaking over his face again. Sasuke and Sakura are leaning in as well, with Naruto chattering cheerfully at Tamari and Kagero, and despite the way Gaara's siblings are still a little tense, a little further from Gaara than is really necessary, they don't look actively scared, so that's probably an improvement. Well, Kurama thinks, folding the adoption papers and running a finger along the creases. That was a heck of a lot less explosive than he'd expected any meeting about Gaara's future to be. So now you're officially a father, Kakashi says mildly, and when Kurama turns back around to finish his meal, their thighs brush. Kakashi doesn't move away, just smiles at him. 1 down, 3 to go. Or is it 7? Kushina scoffs. He may know Naruto's uncle, but he's stealing my son over my dead body, you know? She declares, jabbing her chopsticks at Kurama threateningly. Like I need to steal him, Kurama retorts. He'd come with me willingly. He would not, and I'm his mother. So? Yagura makes a sound of a mixed impatience and amusement and asks pointedly, Is there room for one more? Still scowling at Kushina, Kurama jerks a thumb at the stool on her other side. Yeah, sure, but you have to sit next to the harpy. I think I'll risk it, Yagura says, dry as dust, and pulls himself up onto the seat. One of your tokatsu, please, he tells Teuchi. Of course, Mizukage-sama, Teuchi says easily. It's just Yagura, he corrects, and Kurama blinks because Yagura is about 50% defensive anger over his age and 50% pride in his position. Raising a brow, he leans around Kakashi to level a look at the Jinchuriki, and Yagura rolls his eyes faintly in return. Taumi will be carrying the hat back to Kiri when the delegation returns, he says. I told her that she and Momochi could wrestle for who got to wear it, but I believe Momochi bowed out almost immediately. Faced with Mei and the Mizukage's seating question, Kurama doesn't blame Zabuza for staging a tactical retreat. Mei is probably overjoyed, and Kurama remembers enough about what kind of Mizukage she was to be glad she's back in the position. Kiri needs change, and given the way Obito controlled him, Yagura isn't the best person to implement it. There's always going to be some level of doubt about where Obito's control ended and Yagura began, but Mei's one of the people who stepped up to stop him. People will follow her gladly. So, when you ask if we've got room for one more, Kurama starts amused. Yagura gives him a look, but concedes with the tip of his head. I was hoping you wouldn't object to one more Jinchuriki occupying your house, and that the Hokage would allow me to stay in Konoha a while longer. That's fine, Kushina tells him cheerfully through another mouthful of noodles. She swallows and adds, There are still a bunch of extra rooms, so just pick whichever one you want. Downing the last of her bowls, she checks the time and pushes to her feet. Okay, time to go tell the council they'd better keep their damn noses out of things if they don't want me to kick them out on their asses. I'm not as nice as Minato was, you know. She's really, really not. And knowing how Homura and Utatane supported everything Nanzo did, Kurama really can't think of better people to aim her at. He grins, showing teeth, and says, Don't get blood on those robes. It'll be a bitch to scrub out.
Kushina laughs, gives him a cheeky salute,
And drops some money on the counter before she waves a cheerful goodbye to
all of them and disappears down the road.
Leaning into Kurama's shoulder a little, Kakashi chuckles. His fingers leave off tracing lines of heat along the inside of Kurama's thigh, and he slides his hand down Kurama's arm to lace their fingers together before he asks a little whimsically, "Plans for the rest of the day?" "I can keep an eye on the children," Yagura proposes before Kurama can even open his mouth. Catching the raised brow Kurama gives him, he levels a look of amusement right back. "Everyone else has done their time, and seeing as I'm not Mizukage anymore, I don't have anything else to do. Maybe we can play tag again." Kurama laughs, leaning back a little to survey the 4 Jinchuriki and 4 Shinobi children, where they're all starting to huddle. Plans are being made, he's sure of it, but he's also sure he's probably better off being able to claim ignorance so he doesn't listen in. "Yeah, if you want, but I think they're coming up with ways to keep themselves occupied. Good luck." Yagura smiles, lavender eyes a little softer than Kurama has seen them before. "I'm a Jinchuriki as well, in case you've forgotten," he says, but there's no heat in the words. "Every urge they have to make their presence obvious and impossible to ignore, I assure you, I've had the same." Yeah, Kurama is more than willing to believe that. Yagura probably didn't have much choice either when it came to having Isobu sealed in him. In fact, Kurama can't think of a single Jinchuriki who asked to be one. Even Mito made the decision because it was either that or watch Hashirama get his head ripped off trying to fight both Madara and Kurama at the same time. Well, maybe the next generation will do better after seeing what Jinchuriki can be. Or maybe they'll let the Biju out at the end of their lives, set them free, and let things go back to how they should be. Have fun, Kurama tells him and gets a lofty smirk in response. Oh yeah, Yagura is definitely going to be taking advantage of the newfound freedom of being just another shinobi. Kurama wishes him the best of luck. Turning back to Kakashi, he leans in, free hand tracing a line up the man's thigh and nips lightly at the curve of his ear. "No plans," he says, practically against the skin, and feels the shiver that rocks Kakashi's entire body. "I might be able to come up with a few," Kakashi manages after a moment and casts a sideways glance at Kurama. He raises their hands to his mouth, and through the mask Kurama can just feel the edge of teeth as he nips at Kurama's fingers, then drags his lips down them. "Fuck!" Kurama thinks, and his breath shouldn't catch at that simple gesture, but it does. "Going to swoon again?" he asks, and despite his best efforts is rough and a little hoarse. Kakashi chuckles, expression faintly wicked as he presses his mouth to the pulse point of Kurama's wrist. "Maybe I'm just planning to have you do all the work." Okay, that's just about all the teasing Kurama can stand! He pushes to his feet, pulling Kakashi with him, and nods to an amused-looking Yagura. A hesitation, but he doesn't want Naruto to worry, so he sidesteps Temari and Kankuro and leans into Musk Golden Air. "Hey, kid, be good for Yagura, okay?"
"Okay, Kurama-me,"
Naruto says cheerfully.
"Are you taking Kakashi back to the hospital?"
"No, I'm going to take him home and put him to bed," Kurama answers, which is probably technically the truth. At least he hopes there will be a bed in their near future. If they don't get that far today, he doesn't mind, but it would be nice. "Squirt, you good?" "I'm fine," Gaara says with certainty, and judging by the way he doesn't seem to mind Temari at his elbow, he's telling the truth. Of course, it probably helps that Naruto is pressed close to one side with Sakura tight on the other, and Sasuke at their backs. Kurama kisses him on the forehead, tweaks Naruto's nose, and waves at Fu and Yugito, who are just out of reach. "Behave. No eating anyone. Okay, brats." "We'll try our best," Fu promises, though by her grin she means it about as much as Kakashi would a promise to give up his porn. Yugito nods too, and her lips are curled in a small but cat-smug smile that means the lack of verbal agreement was absolutely deliberate. Kurama just rolls his eyes at the two of them, leaves money to cover all of their meals where Teuchi can reach it, and joins Kakashi outside the stand. Instantly, an arm winds around his waist, pulling him close, and Kakashi drags him into a deep, careful kiss. It draws a low, hungry sound up from Kurama's chest, and he hooks his fingers into Kakashi's pocket, kissing back as deeply as he can. Behind them, inside the stall, there's the sound of laughter. Naruto and Fu talking loudly, undercut with Yugito and Gaara and Sasuke. Sakura is laughing, and Fu is giggling, and Naruto's presence is bright and steady and unwavering. It makes the breath catch in Kurama's throat, makes him lean into Kakashi more, kiss him harder, because, well, it feels good, all the way down to his bones. He'd been a creature of malice and rage and hatred for so long with nothing else, and his Naruto helped turn him from that path, pull him towards a brighter future. But Kurama had to reach that future on his own, by himself, with one final push from his best friend, and now he has. None of this would have happened if he had stayed a ghost of chakra trapped in someone else's soul, and for all the grief that came before, Kurama is happy! He can't remember ever being this happy before! Kakashi eases the kiss down, scales it back until he's just slanting his lips over Kurama's, dragging them to the side to press a careful kiss to the edge of his mouth, and then whispers against his skin, "So where are we going? If you try Shinshin, you're going to crush us into a wall or something." Kurama huffs and dredges up the memory of Kushina using one. It's still clear, simple enough, and Kurama takes a breath. Kakashi catches his chin in one and kisses him again with the curve of a smile all too easy to feel this close, and says, "My apartment is 2 blocks away. I can manage that far." There's no time to protest before a whirl of leaves spins them away, and an instant later they're landing on a narrow windowsill 3 floors up with a quieter street below them. Kakashi flares his chakra and then slides the window open, tugging Kurama through into a small bedroom. "Still fully conscious," Kurama mocks, and Kakashi growls softly, kisses him hard, and pulls him down. They sprawl on the bed, half collapsed against the pillows with Kurama partway on top, and Kakashi steals the laughter right from Kurama's mouth. Long fingers cup Kurama's face, and it feels a little like that kiss under the Hokage mountain, full of desperation and affection traced through with relief. He breaks apart just enough for words, curls his hands in silver hair, and leans in to press his lips to Kakashi's eyelid, his forehead, his cheek. "Hey," he says into the heat between them. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Kakashi looks up at him for a long moment, then carefully pushes his hitayate up to look at Kurama with both eyes. He holds his gaze, and Kurama doesn't want to flinch away. There's no urge, no hesitation. He knows that eye and knows what it can do. Just face the horror of it of a few hours ago at most. But this is Kakashi. This is the man who came to him the moment the Genjutsu broke, who defended him against Zetsu and Obito and Kasame alike. He's the only person in this time who knows everything Kurama is. They've pushed at each other, sniped and snarled and fought and come to an understanding, and Kurama couldn't think of him as an enemy anymore if he tried. It's freeing in a way he doesn't remember ever feeling before. Not freed from someone else's chains, but from chains of his own creation. No more fear, not of Kakashi or anything about him. Leaning down, he kisses that eyelid as well, the scar that cost Kakashi his original eye, the curve of Kakashi's smile as he pulls Kurama in again. One hand strokes down Kurama's side to curl around the back of his thigh, squeezing lightly, and Kakashi sighs into the kiss. "I guess you're not," he says, and the words are halfway to joke, but the look in his eyes is the furthest thing from it. "There goes my grand plan to get rid of you and reclaim my peaceful life." Kurama scoffs. "Bullcrap, asshole. You just like pushing boundaries." But he kisses Kakashi again anyway. He's rather less pleased when 4 Jinchuriki kids, 5 shinobi children, Roshi, and Yagura storm the bedroom several hours later, shouting about rescuing red-haired princesses and defeating evil porn-reading dragons. Kakashi groans very loudly and drags a pillow over his head, while Kurama mutters vicious curses at the ceiling and gives Roshi a glare that just dares him to tug on the sheet his hand is inching towards. Kurama, we're here to rescue you! Naruto tears clambering up onto the bed, and Kurama groans and catches him as he starts to slip, dragging him into his lap. "Yeah, kid,"
He sighs and buries his face in some gold hair to hide his smile.
I noticed.
Somewhere, he's absolutely certain his Naruto is laughing.
End of Reverse by Black K Cat. If you enjoyed this recording or the content, feel free to leave a comment below or a review at the original story from the link in the descriptions. Thank you for listening, and feel free to subscribe to get updates for the content published every day.